As I mentioned, the Biden White House has marked the 100th day of the Dobbs decision with a summit yesterday at the White House. And one of the announcements coming out was a dedication of more than $6 million to advance abortion, research grants in various parts of the country. This underscores what is at stake in the midterm elections, because Congress has the ability to determine what government dollars will be used for and whether or not they will be spent for things like abortion and the promotion of it. Joining me now to discuss this and more is Congressman Andy Harris. He is a member of the House Appropriations Committee. He is co-chair of the House Pro-Life Caucus and a member of the GOP Doctors Caucus. He represents Maryland's 1st Congressional District. Dr. Harris, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Good to be with you, Tony.
First, Congressman Harris, let me get your reaction to the White House meeting yesterday focused on abortion.
Tony, that's unbelievable. You know, with the price of gas going up, with murder rates going up, violent crime going up, the southern border basically defenseless, fentanyl killing 70,000 of our youth, and he's talking about abortion in a summit at the White House. The president is tone deaf on to the concerns of average people.
I want to play a clip from Vice President Harris yesterday at this event as well. Play clip number 1.
The Dobbs decision created a healthcare crisis in America. And this task force was convened by the President of the United States to address this crisis in a way that we would approach it from an all-of-government, hands-on approach.
So Dr. Harris, can you explain to me and to our viewers how putting the issue of abortion into the hands of elected representatives versus the court created a healthcare crisis in America?
Well, look, in their mind, it did, because there are people who don't want abortion to be done until, for instance, the 9th month in pregnancy, to be paid for with government dollars. So in their mind, it creates a crisis when a state government can come in and say, or the federal government can keep the Hyde Amendment, for instance, and say, we're not going to spend taxpayer dollars. Or a state can come in and say, look, we're going to limit it to 15 weeks. You can't have an abortion at 8 months for sex selection. This is a frightening thought to the liberals who worship at the altar of abortion. That's the only way I can say it, because look, the Dobbs decision did not create a healthcare crisis. Look, I'm a physician. I look around. There's no healthcare crisis created by the Dobbs decision. There are healthcare issues, but that's not one of them.
Let me step back for just a moment. As you mentioned, you are a physician. Before coming to Congress, you were a doctor. In fact, this issue is what kind of led you into the political arena. We've talked about that before. But abortion is not healthcare. Ending the life of a human being is not healthcare. They're adopting this lingo, just like they do with so many other things, like gender affirming care, the mutilation of young people. They're twisting the English language.
Look, you're absolutely right. As I remind people, the fatality rate is 50% in every abortion. That's not healthcare when a fatality rate is 50%. But they want to use that term. We should never use that term. The bottom line is that abortion kills a beating heart. I mean, that's the bottom line. And look, the idea of states putting limitations on abortion is absolutely frightening to the liberals who consider abortion at any time during pregnancy perfectly fine for any reason, including sex selection.
You know, and I think this is something that our viewers and listeners need to be very much aware of, so they can have conversations with friends and family, because post-Dobbs, this issue goes back to the Congress and to state legislatures across the country. This does not outlaw anything on its face. It simply gives this into the hands of the legislature where it should have been before. But you have the media taking up the narrative of the left, saying, oh, yes, you got all of these politicians that are making abortion illegal. That's not happened. What you actually have, you have Democrats that have, how many times has it gone through the House? The Women's Health Protection Act, 2 or 3 times, that would actually legalize abortion up until the moment of birth, birthday abortions, and would eradicate every state law, pro-life law that's been passed, including parental notification and ultrasound. So who's extreme on this issue?
Look, Tony, this pattern is so clear. Take parental notification, for instance. Now, you and I might assume that a parent actually is responsible for their children until they reach the age of majority. But again, the radical left, time and time again, wants to take that authority away from you. And whether it's on gender affirming care, whether it's on abortion, whether it's on birth control, they want to take control away from parents. This is part of their agenda. Abortion is just one part of it. Strangely enough, the Women's Healthcare Protection Act would allow abortion up to birth for sex selection. Well, these are the same people who can't define what a woman is. So how could you have a sex selection abortion?
That's an extremely good point. And I think it shows the hypocrisy of the left. I want to go back to the clip I played at the beginning of the Secretary of Education. I mean, am I wrong in saying that this administration has an abortion worldview in terms of looking through everything through the lenses of abortion? I want to play this clip again of Secretary Cardona and what he had to say yesterday at the event. Play that clip of clip number 4, please.
Access to reproductive health care is vital to these students and to countless others for success in college and beyond.
Isn't that an insult to women that in order to succeed, they have to have access to an abortion?
Now, Tony, I sit on the Education Committee, Appropriations Subcommittee. I know the data on the education of American youth. And let me tell you something. When abortion was illegal before 1973, Americans scored better. So abortion is clearly not vital to education in the United States. We got more abortion since then, and we got poorer test scores since then. So for the Secretary of Education, again, given the fact that we've had such terrible results from the COVID lockdowns in the schools, for this Secretary of Education to spend any time insisting or suggesting that abortion is vital to education is just mind-boggling.
Yeah, it is. Actually, I'm here at the Creation Museum just outside of Cincinnati, Ohio, in Kentucky. Tomorrow, I'm going to be speaking to a pastor's group. One of the issues I'm going to be talking about is education, looking at some of those statistics, going back to roughly the 1960s when the illiteracy rate in the United States was about 2.4%. Today, it's at 21%. That's despite the fact that we're spending thousands of dollars more than we were 40 years ago, but yet the results continue to decline. So obviously there's something bigger in terms of the problems we have in education than giving girls access to abortion.
Look, you're absolutely right. And the most stunning facts about that slide in literacy is that it mostly affected minority communities. So it's just the communities that the liberal left has said are disadvantaged. They're causing that disadvantage. It's liberal education policies that are causing that disadvantage. And Tony, that's why you and I both know that parents are flocking from the public schools to private schools, Christian schools, the Catholic school system, private school system, because they know that our public school system is failing. Honestly, because we have a Secretary of Education who thinks abortion is vital to education.
Priorities are upside down. Congressman Andy Harris, stick with us. On the other side of the break, I want to switch gears talking about the vaccine mandate and how this is affecting our military, and in particular, the president committing a member of the Coast Guard who he's now kicking out because they won't get the COVID shot. Yesterday, I had one of your colleagues on, Congressman Fallon. We were discussing the military's mandate on the COVID shot and the fact that we're forcing various members out. It was, I think, embarrassing for the president this weekend as he called a member of the Coast Guard who had been rescuing people down in Florida to commend him for his heroism. The Coast Guard, the young man didn't let the president know that he was in fact being kicked out for not getting the COVID shot. But the White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, was asked about that yesterday, and here is her response.
refer you specifically to the U.S. Coast Guard on this issue, on this individual questions. It's not something that I would comment from here, but there, of course, have been multiple vaccination requirements, as you know, in place for quite some time. But again, I'm not going to comment from here on an individual case.
Well, would you like to comment on it?
This is not an individual case. This is a rule made by the commander-in-chief. The fact of the matter is that her boss is the commander-in-chief of the military, and he decided that vaccines were mandatory for the military, even if you had the infection and had natural immunity, or if you had a religious objection. Again, this is unbelievable that they just choose to ignore the facts. Her boss is the commander-in-chief. Her boss made the decision. Her boss should take responsibility for the decision.
So, Dr. Harris, I want to talk to from a doctor's perspective. What do we now know about this vaccine, its effectiveness for this age category, primarily younger men and women who are in top physical shape?
I think what we know now is that no one who is not in a high-risk category really required a vaccination, and especially now that probably 95% of Americans have been infected with the virus. That means that they have natural immunity. It might even be higher than that. So to somehow insist that healthy people continue to get vaccinated when they have natural immunity at this point, again, makes no scientific sense. And in the case of our military, we've discharged and are ready to discharge many people who keep our country safe. And this is just, again, this is a crazy policy, has no basis in science anymore. You know, the whole thing about science is when you learn new things, you change your mind, you change your ideas. On this issue, the president and his administration are absolutely stuck in the mud. They are unwilling to change despite the clear hypocrisy of the president praising someone who he's about to kick out of the military.
Again, on the science of the vaccine, the shot, there are some that say the FDA has not been forthcoming with all of the information about the adverse effects. Are you convinced that the government has been forthright in providing the information about the negative consequences of this vaccine being rolled out so quickly?
No, they haven't. Tony, you know, the vaccine reporting system has hundreds of thousands, if not millions by now, of reports to it. They can't possibly go through all these and determine which ones are accurate and which ones aren't. And in the absence of that, I think they should, first do no harm. First, realize that healthy people, those people who are not in high-risk categories, do not need any more vaccines. You know, we're paying for 171 million booster doses. My prediction, Tony, there probably aren't even going to be 20 or 30 million administered because the American people have figured this out, and they're no longer going to come under the command of the government to get a vaccine.
So, in other words, like we're past the pandemic. The president himself said that last month. So we should step back, reevaluate. Isn't that what we do in science? We look at the information and then we chart a new course going forward based upon what we learn.
That's absolutely right. In technical terms, we call it post-marketing surveillance, and that's what the FDA is supposed to do. Once you begin marketing a drug, and again, Tony, we've never had a drug as widely, put in air quotes, marketed as this drug, since such a huge percentage of Americans have gotten it. It is time to go back, look and see what happens, because now the latest variants of the coronavirus are not as dangerous as the original variants. We know that almost everyone has natural immunity now. Now is the time to back off these mandatory vaccinations.
So this is an election issue that many are talking about. Do you foresee, if there was a change of the majority in the House of Representatives, in Congress, at least in one of the chambers, could that change this mandate upon our military and the way this vaccine or shot is being pushed out?
We absolutely will try to do that. In the end, the president would have to agree, even if it's an appropriation, if it's a spending bill. But I think the president will reconsider. I don't think he's going to want to, shut down the government over standing for a mandatory vaccine that, again, people are voting right now about vaccinations. They're not taking the boosters. Again, the government ordered
Yeah.
171 million. Nowhere near that amount have been administered, and nowhere near that amount will be administered. So people have made up their mind on this issue. The government's lagging on this issue.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I've talked to a number of people who got the shot the first time. Some of them got the first booster, but after that they said no more. Dr. Andy Harris, always great to talk with you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Great to be with you, Tony.